Welcome back to the Mouse and Men, where we explore the grown-up side of Disney. This is our 45th episode, so you should know by now. You can find us online at themouseandmen.com. Go there to find our top 10 things for grown-ups to do at Walt Disney World. Also find links to our social media. But that means for 45 episodes, I've gotten to introduce my co-host, my co-caster, Chris Murphy. Chris, how you doing?
Good, man. I'm all excited. 45 episodes. That pumps me up to think that we've been that on top of it.
I know. I'm excited for episode 50 because that's half of 100. But we're really close, and so I'm getting excited.
Me too. Pumped.
But this week, 2 weeks ago we talked about traveling with toddlers because I've got a toddler. You had two toddlers. Then last week we talked about traveling with teenagers because your toddlers have become teenagers in about 30
And you
minutes.
traveled as a teenager back in the day.
So now it's just some of our travel tips, because when we first started working together 10 years ago, almost exactly 10 years ago, in the first couple months, we drove all over the country, the equivalent of driving around the equator of the U.S., I think a couple times. We were on the road quite a bit, literally on the road, but we flew a few places too. So this week, we're just going to talk about some of our travel tips.
And isn't it funny how, like, now I don't travel as much as I used to when I was on the road with our job. Don't travel as much as I used to, but I'm still now addicted to the idea of efficient traveling. And it's funny to think back probably what we packed and brought along with us those first couple of trips back in the day, 10 years ago, and then what we slowly pared down to just be as efficient as possible to get in and out. I can remember, I think at one point we had like 2 bags each, filled to the brim with all sorts of options. We both had guitars, maybe some recording rigs in case we got inspired in the hotel rooms as we were like playing music and stuff. Just like all of this stuff that we would bring. And then it eventually got down to like, man, if I'm only going for 4 days, I'm not even bringing my big bag. I'm going to bring like a backpack with a couple of changes of clothes, and that's it. And it's played out in my life when I travel with my family as well. Because here I am less than a month away from traveling down to Orlando with my extended family for a big family vacation. And I can already tell that some of the people that are going on the trip with me, they're talking about all of the things that they're packing. And I'm looking at all of that like, don't need it, don't need it, don't want it, don't need it. And so, and even the people that will be in my little minivan, my 2 kids, my wife and I almost look at it as a challenge. So like, even if I'm going to Disney for a week, can I live out of 1 bag? So that's one of the things that I have appreciated through all the travels is how like you can never be too efficient. There are always the little tweaks that you can make it better, easier, more effective as you travel.
Absolutely. So we're going to be talking about some tips for traveling. If you're driving, tips for traveling. If you're flying, these are not pandemic specific. It's just what we've learned from traveling quite a lot over the last 10 years. So let's jump right into it. Because we drove so much, let's talk about driving. Chris, what's tip number 1 you've got for traveling in a car, in a vehicle, wherever you're going?
So again, going back on the lessons that you and I learned being on the road and traveling all over the country, which for me was you and I got really good with knowing the vehicle that we were riding in, about the amount of gas it would hold, and how long then that would put us on the road if we just put the pedal to the metal and drove until we essentially were getting close to running out of gas. And so for you and I, that's how you and I kind of measured, like we knew that these vehicles that we drove would go about 4 hours-ish. And so we would fill up, we would drive. And as that thing got close to empty, we start looking for gas stations to fill up. So then the other person can jump in the driver's seat, give that the original driver a break. And then that's kind of how you and I did our routine. And so the lesson there that I remember learning is like, know your vehicle, and then share that with the people that are with you. So for me, going down to Orlando in a few weeks, I know that I can go about 5 hours before I need to get out, stretch my legs, get some gas, go to the bathroom, get some food. And if I can educate my family on that same routine, then hopefully I can get to Orlando quicker. And so the goal of knowledge so that we can then utilize our time most effectively. Because again, traveling with family, there are always going to be the times where somebody's going to have to go to the bathroom before the gas runs out, so to speak. Yeah. So it doesn't always play out as effectively as you want it to, but that's kind of the joy of traveling with family. So tip number one is know your vehicle so that you can be even more efficient, especially okay, let's use the bathroom, let's get some food. We're filling up the gas tank and we're not going to stop again until we're getting low or until somebody raises their hand and say, hey, we got to pull over because of a bathroom break or something like that. And it just makes it more efficient.
Yeah. Well, just kind of piggybacking. Yes. Piggybacking onto that, know your vehicle as far as dimensions too, because a lot of times when you're traveling on these trips, you've got a car top carrier or a bike rack on the back. Be mindful that your car may be a little bit longer or a little bit taller. We've both had our incidents. I'll say I ran out of fuel in a truck about 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning on the interstate. Not good in a diesel vehicle where not only do you have to get fuel, but you have to bleed the air out of the lines. Huh. I didn't know that until that night. But know that I travel with a bike on top of my car quite a bit. And so I'm very mindful of, I got to make sure I can make it through the drive-through. I may have to kind of swing out wide. Cause the worst thing is going through a drive-through and just obliterating not only a bike, but your roof rack, maybe your roof.
Yeah. Well, that was my issue with the vehicle is I didn't know how tall it was. And I drove underneath like an overhang and plowed right into it and like bent the vehicle, bent the overhang part at like an orange orchard out in the middle of Nowheresville, California.
Yeah, it was like a fruit stands fruit shoot.
But it was like they would shoot the oranges out of where they were processing them to put them into trucks so the trucks could go. But I didn't notice it and just ran right into it. So that was an interesting conversation with the boss man afterwards of why I wasn't being cognizant of what was above me.
Yeah, the joys of those first few trips, which all that happened on the same trip. You on the way out, me on the way back.
Yeah.
But I'd say, especially if you're traveling in the car, you've got a little bit more space. So when I'm traveling in my own vehicle, I do like to take my own pillow.
Smart.
In hotels, I've yet to find a pillow that I like. I used to double up, but now pillows have gotten fluffier, and so that's too much. But one pillow's too flat, so I just bring my own. But also, I like it cooler in a vehicle. My wife, not so much. But also, if you're trying to block sun, just a blanket. It doesn't have to be too heavy. I've got some like fleece throws. You can get them at Target for $10-15, I'm sure. Those are great to have if somebody wants to nap in the back or is a little cold. Just you've got pillows, you've got a couple blankets to make yourself comfortable. It just makes the ride more enjoyable for everybody else. So that the driver can kind of set the controls the temperature controls where they want.
That's really smart.
But being in a truck where you can only sit upright, bringing a pillow so that you could lean up against just something soft in that truck cab, often meant we could drive longer because one of us is napping while the other's driving and just swapping off. So that's where I would start.
No, I think that's great. And actually, for my family, we have a van. We have a Honda Odyssey. And so usually it's me driving almost 100% of the time. And then my wife is in the passenger seat and my kids take the back. And so we've only got 2 kids in a minivan. And so if we still pack efficiently, that means that they can essentially have their own row. And so usually what we do is the kids have a row, mom is up in the passenger seat, dad's driving, and mom and both kids, they bring a pillow and blanket each. So, and it works everything from just being more comfortable to like the sun's coming up and it's really bright. So I'm just going to put my blanket over me, or I just want more private time and I'm tired of listening to whatever's on the car stereo or listening to the conversations. So I can put it over me as almost like a little shield as well. So that's been really good for my mom, my wife, and my 2 kids to always bring a pillow and blanket to just have that much more comfort, especially on these long trips, it is from Nashville down to Orlando.
You just imagine that it's your own cone of silence. From
exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I'll say too that it's just nice to be able to, as a kind of a side note with this, before we move on to flying and doing airport stuff, is that I have a tradition. If we're going down to Orlando from the Nashville area, that I leave at like 2 a.m., 3 a.m., something like that. So we're a good third to halfway through the trip as the sun's coming up, or before we even really need to get breakfast. So sometimes, especially when the kids were younger, it was like, getting them out of bed, putting them in the car seat, letting them fall back asleep, and then we just drive. And so now that they're a little older, I think that they're just going to have to kind of huff their way to their position in the car that was packed the night before. Another good tip. And then dad sits down and drives while everybody else snoozes. And it's just a little bit more relaxing. And then when the kids finally do wake up, we're that much closer to Orlando.
Yeah, we did that, left South Atlanta at about 3 a.m. to get to Orlando about 9 or 10 a.m. And it, a lot of time driving in the dark, but it meant we got to Disney World just a little bit earlier. I will say a couple other things. Pack snacks, not only for the drive, but especially when you go to Disney World for the parks, because 1, it saves a little bit of money, but 2, sometimes you're waiting in line, maybe a ride breaks down, so you're waiting in line a little bit longer, and it's not easy to get out, go get a snack, and find your party back in line. So you've got some snacks that you can just throw in your backpack and keep nearby while you're through the parks. But also, we have to pack a lot of snacks wherever we go, just because my son has a lot of food allergies. And though Disney does great with catering to those food allergies, at those, prepackaged snack little carts, it's a lot harder to find stuff. So prepacking snacks that your whole family can enjoy makes it a lot easier. Something we did when we were driving is we would stop at Subway and get a footlong, eat half of it for lunch, save the other half for dinner. Just a lot of ways to save a couple bucks, because we were trying to take as much per diem back home for the families as possible. But that just kind of rounds out my driving tips.
One quick one that I just thought of as we were sitting here, and just quickly, is if you have the means, you're going on vacation, you're trying to relax, you're trying to enjoy yourself. If your daily driver isn't necessarily the height of luxury or comfort, or it's not meant for long-term travel, like it would be, like it's like a 12-hour trip for me to drive from Nashville to Orlando and then back. And so just as another tip, if you can, put into the budget of your vacation to rent a vehicle, to just not put wear and tear on your daily driver, so that you can have, like, maybe you can get a minivan if you only have a small sedan or a something that's just not as roomy. Rent one, and they're not going to be cheap, especially in the height of vacation travel, but it can give you that much more comfort as you're traveling with family. And oftentimes I know that newer vehicles have like the dual climate control too. So if you've got some people that are hot and other people in the family that are cold, you can do the blanket and the pillow, and that's nice, but you can also rent something with the dual climate control and just have that much more of a control over your comfort.
Yeah. And I think we talked about this before, because when you drive down to Disney, they charge nightly for parking. So if you're going to rent a vehicle, consider renting from home to Orlando, drop everybody off, drop off the luggage, then go return it at the airport. And you don't have to pay for the rental days when you're not using it. Plus, you don't have to pay for parking. Then when you're ready to go back, just go rent the vehicle at the airport again, throw everything in, and drive back home. I've done that a couple of times, not necessarily going to Disney, but going other places, and it works out great.
And I know that this may change soon, that I think that Disney is halting their free travel from the airport to Disney properties. But I think it's still happening now. I think they're discontinuing it sometime in the near future. So if you are listening to this and you're on your way down to Disney, check and see if that's an option, because that's just that much more money savings if you can drop it off at the airport, and then Disney can still get you to property on site there, just to save a few more dollars.
Yeah. The Magical Express, I've ridden it once, to my knowledge. It was great. That is being discontinued. But I'm sure there's going to be something else in its place. So let's transition into flying. I gotta say, like you were saying earlier, we've learned to pack light. Traveling with my dad when I was younger, he always made me pack in just a carry-on. And
so smart.
We've taken trips to Italy for 2 weeks, and all we got to take was a carry-on. It works. I've gone on fishing trips with friends to Colorado, to Idaho, and I'm telling you, these guys pack all their gear. It's like you're not even going to use all that stuff, but then they've got huge duffel bags, body bags of, I don't know what all they're bringing, but I guess if something happens, maybe they've got an extra raft in there. Who knows? But so we'll get off the plane, and we got to go to baggage claim and wait. And it's like, okay, what are we waiting for? Oh, well, we're still waiting on Randy's bag. And then me, my dad, and my brother, here we are with just our backpacks ready to go.
So smart. Yeah.
That's all we brought. It makes life a whole lot easier if you can do that. I will say I'm flying with my family. So my wife and my son, we're recording this early. So this last weekend, we're traveling to the Northeast, and I'm packing. I'm not sure if we're going to carry on everything, because it may be too much to try to carry an 18-month-old and all of our carry-on stuff through the airport, get it on the plane, get it off the plane, carry it back through the airport and all that. So I may check one larger bag instead of a couple carry-ons. But in your case, you've got able-bodied teenagers.
Oh yeah.
It may make more sense. Everybody just gets one carry-on. That's all you get. It can save lost luggage stress. It also just means you're not packing all this excess stuff as well.
Yeah. I think that one of the tips that I heard back in the day when we were working together and traveling around was try to pack for the best case scenario, that like you have exactly what you need, nothing's running out. You've prepped yourself as good as possible, and pack for the best case scenario, especially if you're going somewhere like Disney, like metropolitan Orlando area where you're in civilization. It's not like you're going to be in the middle of nowhere once you arrive at your destination. So if you get there and you've packed for the best case scenario, but then you lose your toothpaste or whatever, it's easy to replace a toothpaste while you're traveling. You can go to a convenience store, or most of the resorts, if you're staying on property, have little sundries that you can purchase there. So if I forget Tylenol and then I have a headache, I'm not too far away from finding a place that I can purchase Tylenol from. And so packing for the best case scenario means that you can pack with less because you're not packing for every scenario.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the opposite of the way that I used to pack. I used to pack with worst case scenario in mind, that like, again, on our early days of traveling around the country, like maybe I will want to record an album. Maybe I will want to draw, and maybe I will want to do some DIY projects. So I'm going to bring all of that stuff with me just in case. And we got to the point where I realized that most of the time when we're traveling around, I didn't have time to do all that other stuff. And I wanted to get back to the room and just relax. Yeah. So once I got all of that out of the way, then it's just my necessities, my change of clothes, my toiletries, the tech that I need to function. And I realized that packing for best case scenario, rarely did that go awry. And when it did, again, usually we're in larger cities, and especially talking about this with going to Orlando or something, you're not far away from being able to replenish whatever you may have left behind or you've run out of.
Yeah, I will say a lot of airlines, if they lose your luggage, they've got little overnight kits. I was traveling with my boss, and he had checked his bag. They lost his bag. So we went to the luggage claim counter, and he's like, do you have an overnight kit? Because I need toothbrush, toothpaste, all that. And they came back, and as they kind of came around the corner, he saw them rip something off of this, plastic bag. And later he told me he knew exactly what it was. It was the tag that says it's, a women's overnight kit. But because he got women's deodorant, and the next morning, of course, he's having to make a sales presentation in like a short sleeve fishing shirt, shorts, and kind of athletic shoes. He's like, this is not how I want to be dressed. Plus I'm wearing women's deodorant. His line was, I'm strangely attracted to myself. But it all turned out okay. People understand, but he's a day without his luggage. So it is just an inconvenience having to go back to the airport and get it. But that's just one tip. Chris, what's your tip for traveling via air?
Another idea that I had, especially when regardless of whether you're doing world travel or you're going down to Disney or you're going on to the Grand Canyon with your family, again, the smaller that you can pack, the better. And there are certain garments that are better suited to especially summertime travel than others. Yeah. As much as I am a fan of just a plain cotton t-shirt and jeans, when I go on vacation, I switch up my daily wardrobe. Again, like a shirt that I'm wearing right now, probably 100% cotton, and I'm wearing a pair of jeans. That's just my everyday outfit. But I change it up because I know that, like, when am I going to need to wear jeans in the heat of the Orlando summer, being down at Disney World? I need to be in shorts. And so I kind of change my wardrobe to fit that. And especially traveling during the summertime, I don't need as many clothes because it's basically going to be shorts and a t-shirt and some comfortable shoes every day. And hopefully things that dry well as well. So I try to, as much as possible when I'm traveling, ditch my everyday wardrobe for my vacation wardrobe. And also try to get as many things that are I like those types of, I forget the types of shirts, but like an athletic shirt that's made of, it's like a man-made material.
Yeah, that quick dry wicking stuff.
Yes, that's really good, especially when you're sweating or you get wet on a ride. Those are good because they dry so quickly. But also something that I've been turned on to recently that I'm kind of falling in love with, which is merino wool. Just the idea of wool, it sounds really hot, but it actually has a lot of those moisture wicking properties as well. And it kind of keeps you warm in the wintertime and keeps you cool in the summertime. And you can get a lot of wears out of it. So I know that people that really get fascinated with this, like one bag travel around the world, they have like 3 shirts and 2 pairs of pants, and they're all made out of this merino wool stuff. And so you can get by with a lot less when you know that you're traveling around the world. You're not trying to win a fashion show. And so being able to pare it down to a few really good pieces, again, allows you to travel lighter. And you can wash something like that in your hotel sink, lay it over a chair or something like that. And by the next morning you wake up and that the merino wool has already dried overnight because of this magical stuff that it feels like that you're working with merino. So It's become kind of this fascination I have with trying to transition my vacation clothes to just a few items and that merino wool material. What about you?
Yeah, I love that stuff. Done some hiking. Merino wool socks are the best. I'll say this too, and this can apply for driving as well. One tip that I have, because I traveled so much, I had dedicated travel chargers that never left my bag.
Smart.
So I wouldn't have to remember to pack those, because sometimes I'm leaving really early in the morning and you don't want to have to fumble with all that stuff while my wife's sleeping and all that. But also I made sure to get extra long cables. So most of my charging cables are 6 feet long, and I've even got a USB extender, another 3 feet. There was one particular hotel where my nearest charger to my bed, without unplugging stuff, or sometimes those things are screwed into the wall, was all the way in the bathroom. And I had to use a 6-foot cord plus the 3-foot extension to go from the bathroom to my nightstand so that my phone could be there with my alarm so that it would wake me up in the morning. So extra long cables. And if you travel a lot, an extra set of charging cables, charging sets that you just leave in your bag. It's saved me on countless occasions having, those extra long cables are just marvelous.
That is so smart. And yes, for those of you that are not watching it on YouTube and listening on the podcast, I'm currently holding up a 6-foot charger right now that had just become my normal now. Like those 3 feet chargers that come along with your phone or whatever, those are usually good if I'm just in the driver's seat and need something to plug in my phone with. That's about the only use case I now have for a 3-foot cord. Everything else is like 6 feet. I have traveled. I've gotten the phone chargers in 10 feet length as well. Again, just like you're saying, that is such a lifesaver when you get into a hotel and there's just not as many USB ports or outlets to utilize. Because again, we use our phones more and more for so many things. We need it near us. And these 6-foot cables like this have saved, it sounds like, both of our lives on many different occasions. Yeah.
So as we wrap up, Chris, do you have any other just kind of general travel tips that you've got for people as they're getting ready to go on summer vacation? Maybe we didn't go on summer vacation last year. It may have been a while since we've traveled. Any last minute tips?
Yeah, absolutely. During the pandemic, I started having an issue with my feet. I don't know what, I think it was walking around on hardwood floors for a long time. And I just started getting achy feet. And I went on a deep dive on finding a pair of shoes that I could wear around the house that would be okay for my feet. And I found these, they're basically sandals, but they're called OOFOS, OOFOS. And they're a little bit more expensive than your normal sandal, but they have great traction. They have a lot of padding. And they're really comfortable to wear a lot. And they've literally saved my feet during all of that time. And so it's kind of my daily hanging around the house. Instead of wearing slippers or wearing my shoes inside, I always slide into my sandals, my OOFOS. And it's just like, I've been spoiled by them. And so I think they're like $50 a pair. and I've only bought one pair, and I'm getting close to probably needing a new pair, but I'm so addicted to them now that like it's also going to be because of the traction, because of how comfortable they are, because of how much I can stand on my feet and they don't ache. They're going to be my theme park shoes as well. So, and they don't look so unattractive that you can't like walk into, and again, down at Disney or on vacation, it's like a lot of people are in flip flops or in sandals. And so it's not necessarily out of place. But it's going to be like the one pair of shoes that I bring are going to be those sandals because they work in so many different use cases. And so if you can find that, again, that saves on packing because I'm not packing a bunch of bulky, I'm not bringing a pair of running shoes and a pair of walking shoes and a pair of boots or a pair of dress shoes for when I go out. I'm bringing one pair of sandals, and that's going to get me through. So again, thinking through all the things that you have and seeing what can I pare down or get used to now that I'm not traveling. So when I am traveling, I'm used to only wearing that one pair of shoes throughout a couple of days. And so whatever you can do to just make your life more comfortable and simpler, I think is a pretty perfect marriage when you're trying to travel, when you're going to be outside of your comfort zone of your house for an extended period of time. Yeah. What about you? Any last tips?
Well, that made me realize I've actually got, and I don't think they're nearby, I've actually got shoes. Their uppers are made of wool. I'm not sure if it's the merino wool, but when I got them, my wife said, aren't those going to be hot? And I was like, no, wool breathes. It's great. Allbirds are what they're called. Love them. So I'll bring them next week and show you. But I think what we've laid out here are some great tips. Pack light, get longer charging cords because you never know what you're going to get. Comfortable shoes that you can wear all day because you will be walking 5 to 10 miles pretty easily if you're going to Disney parks. Travel's a little different than it was just 18 months ago. But there are some things you can do to make it a little bit easier. So, hopefully some of these travel tips work for you. They've worked for us for over a decade. So, what I want to talk about now as we get into plussing is something, as we're thinking about planning vacations and planning on traveling, we need to plan our time too. So let's get straight to plussing. This week, I've talked about him before, Lee Cockrell. He was VP of operations at Disney World for a number of years. He's written several books. One that I really enjoy is called Time Management Magic. It's just helps you plan out your day, and he swears by it. There are a lot of people who swear by the same or similar methods as well. And I encourage you to read it. I actually had a good use of time when I was reading it because I was meeting a friend for breakfast. So I walked from my house reading it to the bus stop, rode the bus to town, reading it, met him for breakfast, and then same thing on the way back. And I read just about the whole book in I think about 45 minutes, maybe an hour. It's not a long book, but Time Management Magic by Lee Cockrell. It'll help you in day-to-day stuff, but it'll also just help you plan your vacation better, whether you are using a travel planner or doing it yourself. Great principles there to help you out.
Yeah, so smart. We're big fans of Lee Cockrell over on the Mouse and Men show. And so I couldn't, like, if you can find a time management system that works for you and is effective, then go all in. And Lee, I know how thoughtful he is about the things that he puts in his life to be the most effective that he can be. So I know you can't go wrong with a tried and true method that he would take the time to put down in a book that he believes that much in. So I can't wait to read it.
Yeah. So that's going to do it for this week's episode, Travel Tips. I hope you've liked this little series on traveling with toddlers, traveling with teens, and then just general travel tips. If you've got questions you'd like us to answer, You can ask those questions by either going to themouseandmen.com. You can submit questions there by emailing us. You can just email us straight at podcast@themouseandmen.com. You can also find us on social media. All those links are on our website, or just find our handle at The Mouse and Men on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. It's been a great time thinking about all this, but now it's time to travel a little bit. I can't wait to see something other than the four walls at my house.
Me too.
But I just want to remind our listeners and viewers that you don't want to grow up too fast.
But you got to keep exploring.